Hi, Misha here, and let's talk about the SiG P210 / the Pistol 49 P49 today. Now we've definitely talked about that, and I've shown you this pistol here. This is a 210-2. This is the military configuration pistol, but this is a commercial or private purchase one because it has a serial that starts with a P. And thought we would talk about it, compare it with another one. But first, talk about this one. This is the French SACM, S-A-C-M, MLE 1935A. There's also, of course, a 1935S, but we don't care about it right now. The A was the standard French service sidearm from, well, technically 1935 until the early 1950s, and in reserve service until the early 1960s. It is a pretty conventional single action only, single stack, 8-shot, locked breech gun. However, it has a few interesting little features. This was designed by Charles Petter and won the competition. And really what sets it apart is just nice fitment and a really nice feel to the grip. Has a very ergonomic curve. I mean, for 1930s, this is the top of ergonomics. It also has kind of a packet style trigger group system that can be pulled out of the frame. You can see the cutout there in one piece. You also see this in the Russian Tokarev. The big drawback to these and why they're not more popular is they fire 7.65 long. A very hard and expensive cartridge when you find it. So yeah, these don't get a lot of attention today in America, but they did get attention in Switzerland. In 1937, the Swiss purchased the rights to manufacture the 1935A and began testing with it. And really between that time and the World War II period, especially between 1942 and 1944, they made several prototypes, I think 11 or 12 different styles. And they eventually settled on one, which became the 210 here. Now, they did consider doing a double stack version that had a 16 round capacity, but in the end they ended up going with an 8 round. And it would fire the 9x19 Parabellum cartridge, the same as their previous Lugers, which they'd been using. Actually, Switzerland was the first nation to adopt the Luger, and really one of the first to adopt a self-loading pistol. So they selected SiG's, the 210 in late 1948, adopting it as the pistol in 1949, and it would go into production. And pretty much remained in production until the 70s when it was replaced by SiG Sauer's pistol 1975, the P75, which became the 220. So like I said, this is a military style gun, but it has the P prefix serial, meaning it was produced for the commercial market. Now, the initial production of commercial guns was the 210-1. These had a high polished blued finish. They had wooden grips, other fine features like that. Even the early 210-2s, the early military guns, were the same. The first, really at least the first 10,000 made had these in variations, and then they would start to delete some features in the next 10,000. By the way, they started serial numbering these at 101,000. So yeah, at least for the military guns. There basically are 5 acknowledged variations with the military pistols. Now there's no mechanical changes or anything like that really. It just is a change from things like the polished blued finish to the more matte blue, which is easier to do and also wears better and is more rust resistant. They went from the wooden grips to these black plastic type grips. And they would do a few things like they would go from a checkered safety to a serrated, they would go from a checkered, and they would change up basically the controls, the slide stop and the safety. They would either go from smooth, checkering, serrations, things like that. You can look it up. Little changes. The magazines too, they would not change the style. This is just a standard single stack. The earliest ones were actually, the body was left in the white. Not sure why. Maybe they thought it was attractive. Probably because it made it easy to insert and remove. The base plate was blued though. But a mag left in the white is not a super idea. So they would go to a polished blued mag, and then they would go to a matte blued mag. The first three variants are very similar and were produced in quite small numbers. The fourth variant was made in larger numbers and was considered transitional. And then the fifth variant was by far the most made. And that's what we have here. First off, we have a Swiss military holster. It's just leather. I know the shoulder strap's not on this one, but made it easier for the video. Holds a spare magazine here. And this is a military issue P49. You can tell because it has the A prefixed serial and its serial number in the 155,000 means it's early middle of the fifth variation, because the serials would run up to about 213,000. The military contract would be 113,110 guns, so 113,110. However, total production for the 210 was around 350,000. So some were foreign contracts, some were police contracts, and some were commercial. This is an extremely well-made gun, and they paid for it. It was the most expensive issue handgun pretty much of all time. You can see the grip angle is from the French gun here. Both use single stack 8-round mags, but this uses the heel release, whereas the French uses the Browning style. It does have the removable trigger pack system, but in other ways it's quite different. One of its most famous features is how the slide rides inside the frame. This makes for a very smooth travel. It also means they can fit the slide and frame together very tightly while still keeping reliability, because the chances of debris getting in there is very small. Along with that, we have a very nice single action trigger. It's kind of a two-stage, very interesting. As Jay pointed out, it kind of reminds you of a K31 trigger. You have very basic iron sights. For a military gun, you have a checkered top strap, you have your Swiss cross here. Controls, pretty simple. You have a slide release. You also have a safety here that's sort of usable. It's kind of stiff and a little ergonomically hard to reach. That's why they did start changing the pattern on it to make it a little easier to grasp. Got a nice little beaver tail and a lanyard staple in the bottom. That's pretty much it. Yeah, the 210-1 was the commercial version. Usually would keep on having the high polished finish and wood grips. The 210-2 was SiG's designation for their military, Swiss military guns. The 210-3 was very similar to the -1, but it was made for Swiss and other police. The 210-4 is kind of interesting. It was a 210-2, but customized for West German border guard and police. By this, it had no lanyard staple, and it had a loaded chamber indicator. And after that, -5, 6, 7, honestly, I don't really care personally. That's not to say you don't. I know, different tastes. But those are when you get into the sporter guns. You get into sporter target guns, a 22 gun, a heavy barrel, heavy frame gun. They're neat if you're a commercial collector, but that's not me. And then, of course, there's the modern 210, what do they call it, Legend or Legacy. I don't really have any interest in that. The only neat thing they've done, they have gone away from the heel release, and they've gone to a Browning style, kind of restoring one of the features from the 35A. Now, the big deal, there are two big things with the 210 P49. One is reliability, durability. That's easy. Machined slide, machined frame, very high quality barrel. These things can be shot a lot. And the reason Switzerland did that is the same reason they have high quality durable bolt guns like the K31 or assault rifles like the STG W90. They want to buy once, cry once. They want to buy a gun, have a soldier, get it issued to them when they're 18, 21, and be able to still use it when they're 50, 60 years old. They want to just have a gun that lasts, and that has more to do with the structure of their army. Cool. Second, accuracy. These are known for being one of the most accurate production military type guns on the market, and perhaps the most accurate military standard issue handgun ever made. Unfortunately, I can't talk much to accuracy, but Jay can, so I'm gonna let Jay take one of these out to the range and see how that goes. One more thing I brought out real quick is the cleaning kit. Why not? It's kind of an alloy tube, little twist top. You use this as your handle. Very basic, but typical high Swiss quality. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a place in the holster for it, which is a little odd. Oh well, put it in your pocket. So yeah, I did bring that up. Yeah, with that, my part of the video is ending. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to know more about the history, we've got quite a few videos on Swiss guns already. You can check those out in the playlist. And also, by the way, this has a P on it, stamped after the fact. That means it was sold out of military service legally. It was purchased because Switzerland would let their soldiers purchase their guns when they left. So it is legally in private ownership, not stolen from the Swiss military. Well, with that, Jay's going to take it to the range and talk to you a bit about how it feels to shoot, the trigger, accuracy, and all that good stuff. So stay tuned for that. And for now, this is Misha, and I will see you next time.
Hey everybody, it's Jay, and Misha asked me to bring this SiG P210 out to the range just to kind of give my impressions, do a little bit of shooting for accuracy. So this isn't going to be a scientific accuracy test by any means. I don't think I'm capable of doing that, to be quite honest. I'm not the best shot, but I did my best, and so I'll try to convey my experience, and of course my experience is limited to this one P210, not necessarily representative of all P210s out there. So the first few shots that you'll see are just from the test fire. I started out at 5 yards, just shooting at clay targets to make sure that the sights were on and that there wasn't any mechanical eccentricities with this gun. And then I pushed it out to 25 yards. So let me go ahead and cut over to the shooting footage, and then whenever I come back, we'll talk about the 25-yard results. So at 25 yards, I shot a total of 4 groups. Each were 8-shot groups because this is an 8-round magazine. I shot 2 groups from a rest and 2 groups standing offhand, shooting 115 grain SiG Sauer ammo. I would like to have tried some 124 grain in this, but we honestly couldn't find any. We didn't have any. My biggest group from a rest was 3 3/4 inches. My smallest was 3 1/4 inches, which I don't think is too bad at all for 9mm at 25 yards, especially an old one like this. Now standing offhand, that opened up to about 5 inches and 6 inches. 6 inches was my first group, 5 inches was my second, so the gun is definitely more accurate than I am, and I was rapid firing a little bit whenever I was standing offhand. So some of that accuracy I think has to do with the long sight radius here. It's about as long as you can get. The rear sight is pushed all the way to the rear towards the hammer, and also the trigger is really good. I mean, it feels just about like a match rifle trigger, in that even though it is a single stage, it has this take up and a stop. And then just you just kind of, as you're squeezing back, you're already putting some pressure against the trigger. So it's really kind of a thing where you kind of think about it a little bit, apply a little bit more pressure, and it breaks. It's extremely crisp. You may have noticed there, no creep at all, very little over travel, and actually very light as well. My trigger scale measured this at a consistent 4.5 pounds. It was exactly 4.5 pounds for take up and then break. So probably about a 2-pound take up and about a 2.5-pound break would be my assumption. That's just a guess, but that's what I would assume there. So I love the trigger on it, first of all. The other thing that I noticed is the gun is radically smooth, ridiculously smooth, smoother than even my M9s. And I'm going to move the hammer down a little bit so you can just hear, you'll hear my magazines springing around there, so you can just hear the slide. That little click is the barrel. I mean, it is buttery, glassy smooth. So with the hammer up, it's just ridiculous how smooth this thing is. It balances a little bit heavy in the front, which is probably fine if you're shooting a competition type thing, because you know, that having that little extra weight will kind of keep your muzzle from flipping up too much, from what I understand. So overall, really, really well made and pretty accurate. Now, complaints. Misha mentioned the safety. It is in kind of a weird spot, but it's not bad, I don't think personally. But my biggest complaint with this is it was actually kind of painful for me to shoot, and I'll show you why. Now this is going to be a subjective thing, that's a fitment thing for me. You may be able to see a little bit on camera that my finger there is, or the webbing of my hand there is swelled up, and I have a chunk of skin missing and a little bit bruised, and that was because I was getting really bad hammer bite. You can kind of see how close the webbing of my hand sits to that, and whenever you add the recoil in of the gun pushing back into my hand, it was getting me pretty bad. That can probably be resolved by moving my hand further down on the grip, but I have trained so much on making sure I have the highest possible grip that getting that little bit of hammer snapping into my hand was very uncomfortable, and you can see it's, you know, opened up and bled a little bit on me. So yeah, that's not a pleasant thing. The modern P210s, I've noticed, I went out and checked them out. They have added a pretty generous beaver tail, so that would resolve that issue. And people with smaller hands may not even notice it at all. So, but it's something that I noticed, and again, I'm here to give my experience shooting this, and that is not necessarily going to be representative of your own. But cool gun, really buttery smooth, exceptionally well made, typical Swiss kind of trigger as well. Reminds me of my K11, the K31s I've shot, and even reminds me of my 5.51 a little bit in that take up, and then just very crisp break. So, and then, you know, you have the heel release, and it's kind of tough to pull the mag and all that stuff, but that's to be expected in an older type gun like this. So anyway, so that was my experience. Like I said, shooting from a rest, which is about the best I can get as far as a mechanical accuracy test without putting the thing in a vise and having a robot pull the trigger, was about 3 inches. I think that's fair. Around 3 inches with 115 grain ammo at 25 yards. So there you go. Take that for what you will, I suppose. So this is Jay. I hope you liked this video overall, and the little tag team that we're doing on this particular gun. And be sure to like if you have not already, and subscribe to us if you haven't. Check out our Patreon page if you're interested in helping support us. And I will see you soon next time.